Hammers, 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 hammers. It's what we talk about all offseason, trying to move into these difference-making options. And Mitch, in a one quarterback league, 12 teams start 9 with a 1 tight end premium, Tyreek Hill or Brandon Ayuk, and just a slew of picks, including a first, a second, a third, a fourth. I mean, come on. That's a big package, but it's also Tyreek Hill. How do you feel?
Dude, I want to be all in on Tyreek Hill, right? I'm like, dude, this is Tyreek Hill. But at the same time, if this is your chance to get out of Tyreek Hill, it's a one quarterback league, so that first is a little bit less valued. Mm-hmm. I think I'm doing this the vast majority of my leagues.
Yeah. Specific context, maybe. We'll talk about it.
Okay, let's get it. Bitch, let's get it. Woo!
Welcome in, everyone, to another edition of the Destination Debbie Trade Show. I'm Ty DeClaire at Ty DeClaire 44. I'm joined today by Mitch Sorenson at Dino MC. Let's get it. Mitch, hey, we're going to have some fun tonight. Thank you so much for hopping on the show, giving us your time. How are you doing, my friend? And are you excited for a good show tonight?
Dude, thanks for the invite. I've been excited for this I think we talked about 2 weeks ago. I've been stoked about it the whole time. And it's such great time because there's actually training camp stuff. Yes. It's not just spreadsheet football anymore. Now it's like, oh, hey, there's the highlight video of Tank Dell just walking around and everyone's like, oh, he still has chicken legs. And so it's funny how these little changes can actually affect dynasty value. But dude, like I said, I appreciate having me on. I'm excited for this.
Oh, we are so thirsty for the season. It's so close. Let's get there, but enjoy this time of year because this is where a lot of those little news stories, you can really find some things to sell. If you want your trades on this show, patreon.com/ALLGAS, join the squad, get in my opinion, the best dynasty community in the league, in the space, and wherever you want to talk about it. We're talking trades 24/7, theory, completed trades, all that stuff. Also, destinationdebbie.com, all the tools, articles, everything you need to dominate your destination or your dynasty leagues. There we go. And hey, if you're not on Underdog yet, head on over. Get your first time deposit bonus up to $250 in bonus cash and claim your special pick with code ALLGAS. Mitch, we got that out of the way. Let's hop in. So yeah, let's get a little context. So old Big Diaz energy here. Top 3 team running, open the war chest to continue the dominance. They have 3 first, a bevy of seconds, thirds. The first they send, likely late as well. So it's a 12-team, start 9, 1 quarterback, PPR with a 1 tight end premium. Some looks like a little bit of boosted quarterback scoring, very slightly, and then a tiered PPR. I mean, again, 1 quarterback. Those first, I don't need those first as much as I would like to cover them in Superflex. The seconds, the thirds, the fourths, I can figure that out. And I mean, Ayuk, I like Ayuk, but Tyreek Hill is just a different monster, just a different tier of wide receiver. And I think I'll happily package up this, knowing I have a war chest with more picks. This is probably going to be late first, and then I'm betting my future. Yeah, give me Tyreek Hill. I'll continue my championship run. But I will say this. If there's a team where I just took over an orphan, I need to split assets, I need to just get something, it's not a bad return at all.
Yes, so I'm glad we're not agreeing directly on this first trade, right? Because to me, it's really hard to get out of these aging wide receivers. And Tyreek Hill is still Tyreek Hill, probably wide receiver 1 this year, at worst wide receiver 4 overall, right? I mean, his ceiling and floor is just where it's at. But there becomes a point to where these guys get so hard to move. Tyreek is probably the best one out of, we have Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, all these kinds of guys, but we see how hard those guys are to move. The second they have an injury bug or a quarterback problem, it's impossible to move them. So, I completely understand the Tyreek Hill thing, but like you said, if this isn't a 100% contending team, even if I think I'm the 4th best team in the league, I'm probably taking Brandon Ayuk and the package here, hoping that I could use some of these picks to upgrade at a different position somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if this is super flex, it's not close. It's Brandon Ayuk in a landslide, right? It's the 1 quarterback. It's the shallowness of the league. It's the context with it. So, I mean, Big Diaz, you know that I love the context on this one. So, in that frame, give me Tyreek Hill, but there's so many ways that I can tell myself the Ayuk side. So I'd love to see Tano pause side of that one, but that's a spicy one to start us off. So we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom here. We got Llama Jackson. Shouts out to Llama Jackson. got a 12-team start 11 super flex PPR league. Came out of the draft with number 1 in total value, middle of the pack. They have some play. We'll go into that piece a little bit in a second, okay? So first deal, they made 3 deals here. First deal, they sent away Joe Burrow, Zach Charbonnet, and Malik Washington. And they got back Brock Purdy, Roshan Johnson, Jalen McMillan, and a 2025 first-round pick. So, again, they've made a couple moves coming out of the startup. They didn't feel – it kind of felt middle of the pack. They sent away their Joe Burrow, Charbonnet, Malik Washington in a 12-by-11 lineup league. I don't know how much that really is going to factor in here. Kind of same thing with Jalen McMillan. They both feel like dart throws. Roshan Johnson really shouldn't sway a deal one way or the other. So really, Brock Purdy in a first or Joe Burrow and Zach Charbonnet. I mean, in a vacuum, I think if I'm in a team where I'm trying to open up my options on my team, I think I can tell myself, hey, Brock Purdy in a first, especially if I'm convicted on maybe that's a mid first, possibly an early first, take that for Joe Burrow. Okay. And then if Zach Charbonnet is the piece that makes it go through, okay, I can tell myself that. But there's a lot of moving pieces here. Mitch, how do you see this one?
I see it kind of like how you just laid out. I think the trade is pretty fair and even as is, but we know in Dynasty that those 25 firsts, there will always be a market for it no matter what. And will there always be a market for Zach Charbonnet? Sure, but it might be 2 or 3 teams in the league, depending on how good he's done so far in the season. Or something happens, then he gets injured, then someone's looking to get like the injured piece on their team, right? But that 25 first, if it starts creeping mid to early at any point in the season, then all of a sudden this Brock Purdy side just smashes because you don't even have to want that first. You could trade that for something else so easily. And while I do think, Joe Burrow is definitely worth more than Brock Purdy is, it's just that Charbonnet 25 first dynamic that for Charbonnet to really gain value, he's going to need the Seahawks just to flat out play better. He's going to need the offensive line to be better. He's going to need Kenneth Walker out of his way. Or that 25 first, who's that from? It's from Bizarre. And if that guy just goes 0-3 the first 3 weeks, all of a sudden it's like, no, I want that first really bad, no matter how that team is really looking.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And like, if you just play the Delta game, I want a 25 first over Zach Charbonnet very easily. Brock Purdy versus Joe Burrow. I'm going to bet that there's going to be weeks Purdy outscores Joe Burrow. So if I'm in a pure contender mode, roster construction wise, Purdy and Burrow week to week can probably do the same thing. If I'm looking for the best place to park my money and just try to insulate my team, it's Joe Burrow. And Zach Charbonnet is a useful piece, especially if you build like any running back on a 53. Just give me as many bodies as I can and I'll figure it out. Like Charbonnet is a nice piece to have. And you could possibly go up or down from Charbonnet if you have the right league mates. But like you said, it's going to take a very specific deal. And a 25 first is flexible. It's infallible. You know what's going to be there. And hell, the 25 class is loaded with running backs. So if the goal is to get running back, a 25 pick is not the worst way to get into that. So it's interesting, right?
It is. Yeah. I like the trade a lot. I understand both sides of it, but I definitely do lean the 25 first side.
Absolutely. Then we followed that up. We sent away Russell Wilson and a 25 third and got into Keenan Allen. So Russell Wilson projected to start. Does he finish the season? Well, who knows? We'll see. It's Pittsburgh, right? It's an Arthur Smith offense. Who knows? You got 25 third, and then you move into a Keenan Allen. So again, an aging wide receiver in a busy offense. Who knows who's truly how that target share is gonna break down to that offense with a rookie quarterback, right? So there's a lot of question marks around Keenan Allen, who is also a volume-based play for a lot of his career. So Mitch, when you see this, knowing the first deal that we had, knowing it looks like we're trying to make some moves, we were in the middle, we want to move towards, looks like contending. How do you feel about Keenan Allen for Russell Wilson and a third in a 12-team start 11 Superflex league?
The hard team is he already has Amon-Ra, Adunze, Nico Collins, T. Higgins, Cup. So in my view, you're probably not going to play Keenan anyways, but we'll just put that to the side. Let's just say in the overarching view, I just don't think Russ has any upside this year. He could start all 17 games. We know that offense is going to try to run the ball as much as humanly possible. We know the defense is going to keep them in games. I don't know what upside he has over 28 other starting quarterbacks in the league weekly. So I'm completely actually okay sending away Russ in this deal, even if you have all of those other wide receivers. And like, I don't have high hopes for Keenan. I don't want Keenan on my team, but I definitely don't want Russ because I don't see any ups. I don't see Russ's value ever gaining from this point forward. Does Keenan? No, but I think weekly value wise, he's a starter. I don't think Russell Wilson's even a starter in a 12-team league.
Absolutely. So they sent away Burrow, so they have Purdy, Cousins, and Bo Nix. Holding on to Russell Wilson just probably makes that Bo Nix bet a little less, a little less for it. And again, if you, like I said, let me read off these wide receivers for those listening online. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Odunze, Nico Collins, T. Higgins, Cooper Kupp, and Hollywood Brown. If you add a Keenan Allen to that room, does that not make that T. Higgins a little more flexible? You're more willing to include him in a deal, and you can probably get more for him than you can Keenan Allen. So you see how you can probably snowball that and actually create more flexibility by getting one of the more like best bang for your buck threshold wide receivers in Keenan Allen versus paying up for some of that artificial dynasty value.
That's such a great point because that's what can happen. Now, all of a sudden you have maybe not your wide receiver 3, but you definitely have your flex set if you have Keenan. And then all of a sudden, if there's an injury to Diggs, you could ship off Nico Collins for his value that's just going to skyrocket. Yeah. Or Higgins, like you brought up. No, man, that's a great point.
Yeah, for sure. And then we just got straight process here. All right, Alvin Kamara in a 25-second for Jonathan Brooks. I like Jonathan Brooks, right? RB1 of the class. Again, what does RB1 in the 2024 class mean? Great question, right? But you're giving me Alvin Kamara in a second. I'm just going to bet that Alvin Kamara, this is like a 60-40 or like a 70-30 bet to me, right? Like it's Alvin Kamara, and then you give me a second for my troubles to bet that I can work with Alvin Kamara more than I can Jonathan Brooks. So I'm trying to move Jonathan Brooks. I'm probably going to want like a usable piece in a second. So, give me the Alvin Kamara side of this one. Mitch, do you see that differently?
Man, I do. I mean, and like everyone disagrees with me on this one, so I completely understand. Alvin Kamara is just someone I don't want on my teams anymore. I know his receiving upside is there. I think he had 70 catches last year, if I'm remembering right off the top of my head. So it's definitely there. It's just he's one of those backs to where like I could just see that bottom falling out so quickly. And we see the guys. We see what Breece Hall's value is in Dynasty. Jahmyr Gibbs is Hall and Bijan. I don't think Jonathan Brooks is anywhere close to them talent-wise. But Devin Achane, he could end up being close to them. And where did we have Achane value when he was going nuclear, when he was getting 6 to 7 carries a game? And so I think we are so hurting for young running backs to be good that I'm actually willing to take the bet on Jonathan Brooks here. I mean, he might not be available in training camp. He might not be available the first couple weeks of the season. But if we get a 3 or 4 game sample, I mean, Keaton Mitchell is another guy last year before he was injured. All of a sudden, everyone was wanting him because there's just so many old running backs this league that no one wants to buy into. So I'll definitely take the gamble on Jonathan Brooks here.
Absolutely. And I mean, if that's the bet, right, that Jonathan Brooks is going to be that young guy that catches that value and that community is going to want, which they kind of already do want him. Right, I could see where I can get a first, whereas Kamara in a second, I can never see myself getting a first for that package, right? So if you're looking for the ultimate upside, absolutely Brooks works there. If I'm looking to just take the production bet, give me another a piece in my pocket that's flexible that I can use, that's not going to expire, okay. But you're absolutely right. The bottom can fall out on Kamara, and then you're going to wish you had Brooks, right, a couple weeks into the season, right? So absolutely. Okay, Llama Jackson, good trades. Put it all together, I think you've made your team more flexible and you've aligned your team more, I think, than what you came out of the startup. So good work. Keep working at it. Okay, here we go. So we did a startup over the weekend. It's a 12-team, start 12, super flex, best ball league, very juiced scoring. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but quarterbacks, especially running quarterbacks, are boosted. Running backs in general are boosted. Tight ends are boosted. Wide receivers are kind of boosted. If you want hammers, even though it's a deep league. So it's a very kind of delicate balance, but without elite outcome people, you're probably not going to win. So with that in the context, we finished off an auction draft on Saturday night, and we've had 7 trades since then. So all the league mates won on the show. So we'll start here with old Ben Mason. And this is definitely the spiciest deal of it all. I know it's small. Get your binoculars out. So Ben acquired Pop Douglas and a 2025 third, and he sent away Cortland Sutton and a 2025 fourth. So really earth moving, market setting deals here, Mitch. Cortland Sutton on one end of his career, Pop Douglas, on the other end. If this was Scott Fishbowl, it's Pop Douglas, no question for me. But there's no return yard specials in here. So Mitch, in a deal like this, do you just try to find the better pick? Do you take the bet on a player that you like? Like, how do you approach something like this?
Like, I'm not a Sutton guy at all, right? But my worry is I just look the two offenses. I don't think either of them are going to be very good, but I do have a little bit of faith in Sean Payton not being, completely garbage, kind of like what that offense was last year. And Cortland Sutton is still going to be the dude. Like, we know he can be. He stayed pretty healthy last year. And I like Pop Douglas. Pop Douglas is like a favorite guy that I want to play in DFS. Like, if I could load him up in DraftKings and FanDuel, definitely an Underdog, definitely do the weekly props there. I'm completely good doing that, but he's not a guy that I always talk about weekly starts. Like, when I'm going through my lineups, I have 50 Dynasty leagues. I'm going through lineups. I don't want to have to sit there and wonder, do I want to start Douglas this week, or do I want to start some other third wide receiver on the league? But if I have Sutton, I'm like, you know what? I could talk myself into him more often than not. So this one, the third and fourth, it just doesn't do enough for me. So I'm definitely going to want to grab Sutton here.
Yeah. At all times in Dynasty, I'm trying to remove my weekly headaches on Sunday mornings when I'm trying to set my lineups, right? Yeah. So if I can feel one better in a deal and it saves me time, I see that as a win in and of itself. Again, you're talking Pop Douglas, Cortland Sutton. Like, if you're acquiring Pop Douglas, then I want to make sure that my team aligns where I can actually maximize that value. Now, the interesting part of this is the best ball of it all. You don't have to press start on either of them, right?
Oh, right.
So you are just trying to capture spike weeks, more or less. So I agree that Cortland Sutton definitely has the higher floor. You're going to be able to rely on him more in like probably week over week. But I bet Pop Douglas will put up some weeks and will enter your lineup at some point. And again, if you have a bevy of wide receivers already and you're just trying to extract a little bit of value, turn your fourth into a third. If you think the fourth isn't going to be useful, get me up to a third. Maybe I can use that in a subsequent deal. Like, yeah, I can see it from both sides, but really it's a bet on what player do you think is going to close that gap enough, on either side. Perfect. So Ben also made another deal here, and Ben went into the startup and he didn't like the prices at the top. It was a pretty expensive draft for quarterbacks at the top. So he went and just took literally every other quarterback. So one of those guys was Drake May. So he sent away Drake May and a 25 second, got himself into a Jared Goff and Tyler Algier. Now, I do like me some Jared Goff, especially if I'm trying to win in 2024. Drake May, he's a rookie. So we know how hit and miss those can be coming into the league, right? You give me a second. I'll take the second over Algier, but where's that gap between Goff and May for you? And where do you come down on this deal?
So I pretty much made this deal twice in rookie draft, 2-3 months ago at this point. It didn't include the second and Algier, but looking at the May and Goff side, Goff is kind of one of those guys that no matter how good he does, the Dynasty is never going to value where he should be. And I think he's a starting quarterback for the Lions that have a very good offense moving forward for the next 4 to 5 years. But I just don't think Dynasty values will ever value him where he is. And it happens to Kirk Cousins. These guys, they're just kind of set where they are no matter how good they are. And I am a huge fan of Drake May, man. I mean, people say like he has sneaky rushing upside. He doesn't. It's not sneaky. It's just there. He's good. And I mean, we really like to hype up these rushing quarterbacks that we've seen. He's just a guy we haven't seen yet that people just don't realize that his rushing upside is actually really, really good. Yeah, he might not start for 8 weeks this year, but the last 8 weeks, if he's helping me in the playoffs with a good rushing floor, I'm completely okay with that. So if I'm on a team to where I don't think I'm an extremely strong contender, and it's definitely a value hit going from Goff to May, in my opinion, I'm going to go with May because just the upside can be so high with him that by October, we could definitely see Drake May being a top 10 quarterback. It doesn't matter what Jared Goff does. He's never going to be a top 10 quarterback in Dynasty.
Not only that, like what could Jared Goff do to increase his value right now? We're going to the season. We got Amon-Ra, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs. It's wheels up, wheels up. What more could he do to really increase that value? Right. And then you got Drake May in a second. Right. So yeah, like I hear you there. Like if I am not confident to the fullest in my team, in my direction, just give me May in the second. And that's just I'll use that flexibility elsewhere. Like I'll just kick the can down the road. I'll bet that Drake May can do that, especially in best ball where I just need requisite amount of bodies and weeks across a year. Like I said, I can hopefully bet on those later in the year. Now, the flip side of that in best ball as well, you don't want to eat zeros as much as possible, right? You want every single roster spot to have a meaning. So if Drake May gets benched by that old Brissett, right? Like I don't know if Jacoby's going to do it for the whole year, but I bet he probably starts. So how many zeros can you eat? You do have to be mindful of that, but at a certain point, you have to take your shots. And I'll take May in the second here, but I totally get the Goff and Algier side, especially knowing that Ben's trying to win. So
yeah, I mean, if you're really worried about those zeros, go trade a fourth for Brissett. A fourth and 25 fab, whatever your fab budget is, go trade 10% of it for Brissett. And then you're going to be good and you'll be fine. And you'll at least not be taking zeros. I mean, they might not be more than 8 points, but they won't be zeros, right?
Exactly. Got GQ in the house here shouting us out. Here we go. All right, so scroll. Okay, so 12 team Superflex PPR 175, 0.2 point per carry and a start 12. The first is projected to be late. I mean, I don't really care if it's late or where, like a 25 first for Isaiah Pacheco. Are you betting it's not it's not the pick of the team. So I'll present in one way and then I'll ask you about this trade. So are you willing to bet your team's future on a single asset like a Pacheco? And are you sending a late first to get Pacheco in a 12 team start 12 with a big point per carry?
So one of the things with Pacheco for me is he runs stupid. And it's really hard for me to like him because he runs and it's just dumb. Like, dude, my favorite players in football are all running backs. But what it really comes down to is that 0.2 point per carry. Mm-hmm. It's actually a lot of points. And it ends up making guys like a David Montgomery actually worth a lot because he's going to end up getting 15 carries a game. I think Pacheco is actually in a really good spot this year. While I normally don't say, hey, send your late 25 first for running back, he's young. They have done nothing to bring someone in to even... I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still the second running back on the team. I mean, there's no competition at all for him. So in my opinion, if I'm contending, I'm 100% okay doing this for Pacheco because their touchdown upside every single week is top 5 in the NFL. Will he get touchdowns every week? No, of course not. Can you talk yourself into it every week? Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it comes down to format for me too, right? Like you said, that point per carry, that's massive. That's massive, right? If it's a normal 12 team start 10, just regular scoring, like I'm not doing this. But I like to play the format. I really like to lean in and try to find those difference makers and really work in those creases. So I think Pacheco for a late 25 first, that value is probably fair. And if you feel like that makes your team, go forward, great. But if you're going to make this deal, make sure that Pacheco is your RB1 and that is your bet. Like I'm not making this deal to put Pacheco as my RB3 / maybe like a flex option, right? Like I need to maximize that if I'm betting my future. Now, betting someone else's future, you got to kind of know what you're sending away at the same time, right? But yeah, I think the value is probably fair in the format. It's a start 12, so starters are a premium, and getting players that have that weekly floor, that's something. So, any other thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I was just going to add in real quick on the trading away another team's 25 first. I'm super careful when I trade them because at any point, like if you trade that first away, maybe that manager, I don't know, I've never seen this name before, so I don't know this person at all, but let's say he's just not a very good manager. And all of a sudden, we've seen teams try to tank that don't even have their own first. For whatever reason, it happens. And if this is kind of a middling team and you're not sure if they're going to for sure be a contender, these are picks that I want to keep because I'm just not going to trust that those guys are going to be able to make their team stronger. Mm-hmm. I would rather take the random chance on a mid 25 first on a team that I don't know and be willing to trade away my own first instead, because I know I could probably make my team a competitor. That other guy, I just don't know. So I want to keep that randomness, right? I want, maybe it's 103, maybe it's 112, but I definitely want a chance at the 106 if I could get it.
Yeah. And one of the most fruitful places to be as a dynasty manager is to have the first of the guy who now wants to tank.
Exactly.
So if you're giving away that lottery ticket, make sure that it makes sense, because not all those are created equal. That's a great point. It's a great point. Okay, here we go. Danny, too good. We got a big deal here. Okay, 12 by 10, 12 teams, start 10, super flex, 1-5, tight end premium. Calls it the Tyler rebuild special. I guess this is a me rebuild special. Here we go. So Danny Too Good sent away Malik Neighbors, Deontay Johnson, a 25 second and a 25 third. They got back Blake Corum, Ricky Pearsall, a 25 first, a 25 first, and a 2026 first. 3 firsts, Blake Corum, Ricky Pearsall, for Deontay Neighbors, a second and a third. Wait, we talked about first. Well, we got 3 moving. We got Malik Neighbors moving. This is a big deal. Mitch, in a deal like this, how do you approach a busy deal like this? And how do you come down on this one?
It just comes down to breaking in a step. So like I look, okay, there's 3 firsts in this deal. How many players in the NFL am I really going to keep on my team over future first? Because I know how much value they will accumulate, even if it's a draft that we end up hating in 25 or in 26. 3 firsts for Malik Neighbors. I'm taking 3 first. I love Malik Neighbors. He's never played in the league. I'm taking the 3 first. Ricky Pearsall is the best player, I believe, right now in the NFL to buy on a team to where you're rebuilding, because his value is going up no matter what next year, and you're just waiting for it to happen. I mean, either Debo's going to be gone, or Eric's going to be gone, or something's going to happen to where he's going to be the starter on the 49ers. His value's going up. And then Blake Corum, if you do the Pearsall Corum with Deontay and a second and third, I'll just take the young guys. I love Blake Corum coming in. Didn't like really where he landed, but there's every chance in the world to where if Kyron isn't the Kyron that we saw the last 8 games of last year, and we know Blake Corum is like a head coach's dream, and all of a sudden we're like, we're just going to give him the touchdown work. That happens. His value's going up. So I actually think all the value, I mean, I love Malik Neighbors. Don't get me wrong there, right? I think there's just so much value on the one side that's just an easy smash for me. And honestly, even if I'm not competing, that's the side that I'm going with.
Right. Yeah. You just don't see these kind of deals as much as you used to. Like, I think through COVID, we got a little bored. We were really off our rocker, but we were sending like 5 firsts for single out. We were tossing deals around. You don't see the 3 first deals as much. So yeah, give me 3 firsts for Malik Neighbors. I love Neighbors. I'm high on Neighbors. I think I'm ahead of the curve, like as far as like my expectations for Neighbors year 1, but I'm taking the 3 firsts. I can figure that out with 3 firsts, and we're playing Dynasty. So, I like to keep my options open. Not that Malik Neighbors doesn't have his options, but he is a single asset. He's a player, and I don't know. I can't predict the future. But like you said, those firsts they're inevitable. I like to call it, right? Those firsts are inevitable.
Without a doubt.
Blake Corum, Ricky Pearsall. When they get their chance, people are going to like them, and they're going to want to pay for them. Do I know when that's coming? No. But clearly people want to even buy them now in the offseason, right? So I like Deontay for what he can do on my contending rosters. I think he's probably the first like target earner in that Carolina offense. And a second and a third, I can definitely use that. But I agree. Like rebuild, yeah, definitely give me that. Even on a contender, I can start to tell myself the story a bit, especially if I can find ways to work Corum and Pearsall directly into my line to really capture all that. But yeah, give me the first, give me Corum, give me Pearsall, and let me rebuild that thing. Good luck with the Neighbors and Deontay side.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's a little scary doing that on the side that's getting Malik Neighbors. Like you kind of need him to be Malik Neighbors. You need him to be CeeDee Lamb in order for this to even work out. Because if he's less than that, you pretty much gave away 4.5 first minimum to get Malik Neighbors and Deontay Johnson. And Deontay Johnson's one of those guys, we talk about just his value just isn't really there. But hopefully it will be, hopefully Bryce Young gives him enough targets to where we see him get back to kind of where he was. But yeah, this is a scary trade, I think, for one of the sides.
And it's really interesting to think about that too, right? Because you're trying to rebuild, so you're trying to get points off your roster. A lot of the leagues that I play in, it's max points for, right? So you don't want to just carry guys like a Deontay Johnson who are literally going to hurt your chances to have a better pick next year. So getting them off your roster has value. But the bet on Malik Neighbors is interesting, right? So if he doesn't smash, you definitely smash. If Neighbors smashes and your goal was to get all the way down to 101, he kind of hurts you by being good, right? So like there's a bit of that. Now, obviously, I'm definitely okay if Malik Neighbors is good on my teams and that he's going to be able to be movable, but just give me the first. I think that aligns really well with what you're trying to do there, Danny. And it looks like you're going to really have a good stake in some of these markets going forward as well. So you'll be able to find your way into some premium assets again. So I like that one a lot. We got Mitchapalooza. Here we go. Good one.
I like it.
All right, John gave us a 12-team start 10 superflex with tiered PPR. So wide receivers get 1, running backs get 1.5, and tight ends get 2. It's also a 0.1 point per carry, so a bit smaller than the 0.2. Got a classic 4-for-2 trade where Finkel is Einhorn, I think that's how you say your name, acquires Kyler Murray and a 2026 third. They sent away Michael Penix, Aaron Rodgers, Jermaine Burton, and an early 2025 first. So, Mitch, this is interesting. You got Finkelhorn, I'll say, getting the best asset in the deal, and then the other side getting assets 2 through 5 in a 6-piece deal. So I'll break this one down. I'll be really quick. So Kyler Murray, I think, is far and away the best asset in the deal. He is the elite outcome quarterback in a 12-by-10. He's the guy that I want. I'm not playing too hard into the point per carry in this league, but it's nice to have that kind of a thing there. Michael Penix, he's one of those guys. When he gets the chance to start, the bet is that you can flip him for a first, right? He was the 8th pick overall, whether the ownership is aligned on that, and there's questions about all that. He's going to, when he gets his chance, and I bet he's going to get his chance, people like him, he's going to be able to be flipped for a first. Aaron Rodgers, falling knife asset. It's literally just give me as many starts as I can while I still can. So you kind of have 2 flips of the coin there. Like you kind of took your single dollar in Murray and split them into at best 2 50-cent pieces, one for the production, one for the kind of dynasty value. Jermaine Burton, kind of a dark throw. Like I think that he's probably going to be the wide receiver 3, but I have zero faith in production, how that looks in that offense or what he's going to be going forward. But I like the shot at an early 2025 first. But I think if this is me, again, if I need to split assets and just get more stuff to do more stuff with, I can tell myself the story on getting the 4 for the 2 here. I think I might just take Murray in this format and say Michael Penix and Aaron Rodgers. I'll figure that out, and Burton in a first, if that's what it costs to go up to Murray. Especially if this is my team, Murray's the piece that I need to really put me over the edge, give me that difference making option. I'll take Murray.
Yeah, this one, is that really early, or is it like the 104 early? If it's
right.
Like a top 3 pick, then I'm just going to take the top 3 pick. I mean, and then the other pieces are great. But if early is more 103, 104, 105, and then I'm just 100% going to take Murray in this deal because I actually love that offense moving forward and just don't have a lot of faith in Rodgers. The Penix thing is just weird, but I agree he's going to gain value. Burton, I really think he could either be his value is going to continue to climb, or he's going to be a complete head case that he's kind of shown so far in his collegiate career. And then you're going to have to worry about we've seen that with off the field stuff with wide receivers just in the last 2 weeks about how them just doing things off the field is going to end up hurting their dynasty value. So I hope he's great, because I think it would be amazing to have a 3 wide receiver set of him, Higgins, and Chase out there. I think Burrow to the moon at that point. But I think it just really depends on that 25 first for me. If it's early, sure, I'll take the package. If it's not, then I'll take Kyler Murray, because I think his value could even end up being a top 6 quarterback by the end of this year.
Okay, I'm in lockstep with you there on Kyler for sure. And if I'm trying to think of this from like almost like a startup standpoint, right? Like, Kyler, you're probably spending at minimum 3 firsts to go up and get like 3 firsts worth of value to go up there, right? And not all firsts are created equal. So you have that, we'll call it an early 25 first. Between Penix, Rodgers, and Burton, I bet I can get a first and a second, if I really fished hard enough, right? I don't think I'm moving my Kyler Murray for a shot at an early first and basically another first and then a second. And you got that third back, which is fine. But I think just no matter how I break this down, I know the teams that I would do this deal on to get the 4. But most of the way, in the way that I like to Dynasty, just give me Kyler. I think it's the better place to park your money versus trying to split it up. And you have to be right on many of the pieces that you're getting in the 4 side to really pay that off.
It made such a good point. Like when you break down trades just based off of startup value, if you put just the startup picks in this, Kyler Murray would be just an absolute smash on every single side because he'd be like a mid-second, then everything else would be 7th. I mean, top maybe. I mean, it's just such a hammer on that side if you look at it that way.
Absolutely. But if that first is early, you can definitely do a lot with that, right? So
that's the tricky thing, man.
There's some long play, but you're kind of getting like the 2 sides of the quarterback quarter really just kind of confuses me a bit there. But maybe that's the way to go. So who knows? All right, here we go. We got a 12-team Superflex PPR 1 tight end premium start 10. The first projects to be late, could be mid, worst case. So Stiley acquired Anthony Richardson, Chris Olave in a 2025 second. And they got back, or they sent away CeeDee Lamb, Will Levis, and a late, could be mid, 2025 first. So they sent away their own 25 first. That tells me they see their team as basically at worst a playoff bubble type team. So a couple key injuries. If Anthony Richardson does what he did in 2023 and doesn't play for a lot of the season, like that would be the outcome where that would probably be at least a mid pick. But again, let's play the startup game really quick, Mitch. CeeDee Lamb, Anthony Richardson, probably right in the same thing, right? So you could choose what asset you want to build around, what difference making option you want to build. You're telling me Chris Olave in a second, or we'll call it a late first and Will Levis. I'll take Chris Olave in the second, but I can definitely see the way where if that first is mid, maybe there's more of a conversation.
There are times I could talk myself into Will Levis. I'm like, look, they're doing the same thing that the Bears did with Caleb Williams. They're trying to put stuff around him. It's just, we have no faith he's actually good at being a quarterback yet, right?
Yeah.
And the hard thing for me is to look at CeeDee Lamb and just knowing how pass happy that Cowboys, the offense is going to be this year. I mean, his targets, I don't know what the over-under is right now, but if it was 180, I'm going to be like, you know what? He could probably hit 190 this year. I mean, That is just going to be so pass happy that I'm going to have a hard time passing him up. But Anthony Richardson on the other side is just that he's going to be great, or you're going to hate that pick by week 3 because he gets injured again, or he's going to be one of the best fantasy quarterbacks that we've seen in a long time. Yeah. And so I'm willing to take that gamble on Richardson because looking at the other QBs, you have Caleb, so you're going to have a young starter. You have Rodgers to fill in if something happens. Fields to me is whatever, but now you have Richardson for those weeks, and Rodgers is just kind of your backup at that point. And Chris Olave, we don't value him like we do Garrett Wilson. He's been almost as good as Garrett Wilson on the field. So in my view, I'm probably just going to 100% go with Anthony Richardson and Chris Olave, and then kind of worry about that 25 first at another point.
Yeah, that's I think you nailed it. Yeah, I mean, Anthony Richardson is that freak bet, right? He is the upside of all upside, just an Adonis of a man. So
he is, without a doubt.
If he hits, he's gonna be that sledgehammer, right? Which we know CeeDee Lamb is. But you can also approach wide receiver in a multitude of ways. You can't, the quarterback you kind of know what you're getting into in certain ranges, right? So you got to make your bets. So I agree. And hey, Will Levis has probably overcome the difficult part in his career. Like he's survived a regime change and he's still the projected starter. So, I'll give him his credence for that. I'm just not like a overly committed Will Levis guy, but I'll give him a hat tip for doing what most draft picks probably couldn't do, is survive a regime change and still have that oomph going into the next season. So yeah, give me Olave Richardson the second, but this is a really fun deal. Just kind of how it's a wide receiver, quarterback, and a pick on both sides, but it's just different framing, different ranges. And yeah, it's a good deal.
Like I was just going to say real quick on the whole Justin Fields thing. He is the reminder for me on rushing quarterbacks. There were people, even until he was traded to the Steelers, that were willing to give up a future first pick for him because they're like, well, no matter what, he's going to start somewhere. That rushing upside has people buying in so much that even if Anthony Richardson doesn't have a great year, his value is still going to be super high because there will be someone in your dynasty leagues that will value that rushing upside really high. So you will always be able to get value at least for the next 2 to 3 years. Will Levis, on the other hand, I mean, we just don't know. Maybe his value goes up, maybe it stays the same, maybe it goes down. But I think Richardson just has such a solid floor. Even if he ends up getting injured, that floor is still there for you.
Yeah. Like I said, it looks like a pretty standard scoring league with a tight end premium, right? Start 10. So you really want those hammers. If I'm talking that Fields, I love Fields as like my QB 3-4 because guess what? When he does play, like you said, people are going to be right back in. They're really going to want him. Or I'll put him in my lineup and bet that he will give me that rushing pop upside and be that guy when he starts. We just don't know when that's going to be. So, yeah, really interesting to see Fields and how that works going forward. Here we go. Okay, Marquez 1. Got 2-point tight end premium in a super flex 12-team start 10 PPR. So big tight end bonus. We got Mark Andrews, Deebo Samuel, and Terry McLaurin being acquired for A.J. Brown, Tyler Lockett, again, that man, Pop Douglas, and Dalton Schultz. This is pretty busy. You got Mark Andrews, I guess the best tight end in the deal. You got Dalton Schultz going back, so you give the tight end edge to Phillip. Then you got A.J. Brown, who, I mean, honestly, Mitch, if you told me I had to trade Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin for A.J. Brown, I will pay the shipping, the handling, and the tracking fee to make that deal go through, right? So the question for me is, does Tyler Lockett and Pop Douglas make up the gap that's left there between Mark Andrews Schultz and the win of the A.J. Brown side? So I don't know if you see that the same, or how are you coming down on this deal?
This one's hard for me, man, because I still want to buy into Mark Andrews really bad. Like, he's only 28. He is not an old tight end, but he feels like he's an old tight end because he's just been in the league for so long. We've seen him be dominant. We've seen him been injury prone. I'm not a huge fan of Schultz and Houston after the Diggs trade just because there's only so many balls to go around. And Schultz wasn't used that much early in the season. He was used a lot more late. So I think it's a huge gap in there. But A.J. Brown is amazing. I mean, A.J. Brown is the dude to where when you watch football on Sundays, you're like, I want to watch that guy. He's amazing. But, I mean, I think Mark Andrews can still be the unicorn of the position. I love Sam Laporta, as you see with the Lions gear behind me. Sam Laporta is my dude. But I think more often than not, I'm going to say Mark Andrews is going to be the better tight end this year. Then you have Deebo. And Deebo, if he's healthy, he's going to give you 15 points a week. Terry McLaurin is going to be the guy that Daniels is going to throw to nonstop because I don't really believe they have anybody else. So I'm going to take the Andrews, Samuel, and McLaurin package here.
That's really, and again, like if Deebo, McLaurin, and Andrews just do what we hope they can do this year, like that side is going to smash, and that side's probably going to be like the contending team, like at the end of the day. So like I totally agree there. And a 2.0 tight end premium, getting those elite outcome tight ends, like that's important. Now, if Dalton Schultz can be just that, even that tight end, 12 to 15, whatever that even means in Dynasty, right? Or in like in production wise, that's a flex option in this league, right? Like for sure. So you do probably get a flex starter in Schultz, but like you said, when is that going to come? When are those weeks actually going to come? And are you going to feel confident plugging that in your lineup, or are you making more headaches for yourself on Sunday morning, right? Taking on Lockett, Pop, and Schultz, where you're moving out of a Deebo, McLaurin, and Andrews, where I know I would feel a lot better starting the bottom three than the top.
Yeah, and kind of like the whole Pop Douglas, Tyler Lockett thing is just kind of weird because you're kind of moving a lot of old vets, but you're kind of getting a little bit younger, but not really startable guys. So, I mean, if Lockett and Douglas could have been a younger player, then I probably would have been like, you know what? I could see this side of the deal a lot more. But with Pop and Lockett, and then you're sitting away three better starters besides the A.J. Brown part, it's kind of hard for me to buy into that side.
Just want to say really quick, he did say Pop Lockett, which I feel like we got like a Pop Lockett. Like there's something there. Like there's something there. So
we could do something with that.
We'll cook on that in a little bit, right? But a lot of the talk, especially in the DT circles right now, is liquidating that middle part of your wide receiver room, right? Get to the top, get to your difference makers like an AJ Brown, and those middle tier guys, especially like with the aforementioned, like a T Higgins, right? Moving down from those guys, getting value somehow, and then replacing that with someone at the bottom who's probably good. Maybe it's 2-3 points per game, but over the course of a season, it's probably going to wash out in the aggregate production wise, and just try to build value that way. If you're trying to approach it like that, moving out of Debo and McLaurin, Pop Douglas really isn't high enough on that scale for me to feel comfortable making a move strictly for that purpose. But Tyler Lockett, I can kind of tell myself a bit of the story there, Lockett versus McLaurin. But the same thing you said earlier with Charbonnet, like fits, right? There's a lot of things that have to go right in that offense for these pieces to still sustain what they've done and to rely on that. So my heart wants to go AJ Brown because I have a very, very soft spot in my heart for AJ Brown. But I think the 9 times out of 10, I should probably take the Andrews, Debo, and McLaurin side and just smash my league mates in the face with points.
Yeah, no, I think we're pretty much full agreement on this one.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. And I mean, we're talking about, outcomes for Mark Andrews. A lot of the tight ends are right around that 700 to 900 mark on the books, right? So it's who knows where. And you got 2 wide receivers here in Drake London and Nico Collins, who they're both projected, for 1,000 yards, and which one gets there? Good luck. Is this a deal where if you just give me the plus on one side or the other, I'm going to take the side that gets the plus?
Yeah, this isn't a deal that I would just do. I mean, it's exactly what I'll take the plus on either side, but these 1-for-1 trades, I feel like I have to be right. And I have a lot of confidence in my player takes, but I just don't have that much confidence when you have 2 players side by side that are just as good. And I'm like, you know what? I'll take the third and figure out something with the third, and I'll get a plus on that. I think that both the guys are the exact same. I could probably talk myself into a higher upside with London, but I have to write a novel and try to talk myself into it when it's just you know what? That one has a plus. I'll take the plus.
Yeah, and a 12-team start 10 PPR Superflex 0.5. It's a very standard scoring league, right? So London or Nico Collins and a third. I mean, the bet against Nico is it's a busy offense, right? But Nico did well in a busy offense last year, right? Yes, it's getting busier with Diggs, but Nico's going to Nico, right? And people like Nico. I think the bet with London is that he is the wide receiver 1, and you have wide receiver / tight end / whatever other position Kyle Pitts ends up playing next year, right? The bet is that London eats more of that target share. But I just think at the end of the day, these 2 are in the same arena. So just give me the third, and you can have whatever player you want, and you best be right.
I mean, what happens if Kirk Cousins doesn't come back completely healthy? What if he has a little bit of a thing with that Achilles? And then all of a sudden, do you want Nico Collins with CJ Stroud, or do you want Drake London with Michael Penix? I mean, I'm going to take Nico Collins every day of the week.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No. Like I said, you can probably you listen at home. Let us know in the comments. Are we off? Is London or Nico just so far above the other? Or are you just taking the plus at the end of the day? Let us know. But yeah, just give me the plus. I'm going to be simple. Give me the plus. Oh, and here we go. We're back to Knockout Kings, the startup we did. So again, Gabe, you might see Gabe on the show here shortly too. So keep your eyes out for that. But Gabe got another deal done where they acquired Jonathan Brooks, that man, Romo Dunze, and a 2025 first. And they sent away Jahmyr Gibbs, Tank Dell, and a 25 second. Now, this is a spicy deal. There's a lot of names that people like, a lot of nice assets. Jeez, I mean, Mitch, I need to know what is your first impression here, and how do you break this one down?
So this one for me comes down to kind of what I've seen in the NFL. Rome Odunze was my second favorite wide receiver coming out, but then he went to the Bears, and it's a little bit of a murky situation, but we're probably going to see him. Keenan Allen's not going to be the league for that much longer, so we'll probably see him rise up. We talked about Jonathan Brooks and his upside earlier, but we've already seen Jahmyr Gibbs' upside, and his upside is fantastic. It's what we pray Brooks can be 80% of what Jahmyr Gibbs was last year. Tank Dell's a stud, dude. Tank Dell, when I remember playing a DFS last year, everyone was still trying to get on the Nico trade, and Tank Dell was hammering every single week, and then he goes out and breaks his leg. So for me, I am taking the 2 best players that I've seen play in the NFL that I know are good against NFL caliber players, and I'm taking that side, even though like you could see why someone's like, I'll move off this and get the rookies because the rookie hype and that 25 first, who knows where it is. But if I'm sending away Gibbs and Tank Dell to a team, I'm assuming that's not going to be an early 25 first because I just gave them 2 great weekly starts for every single week this season.
Right. Yeah, and this is like there's a bit of context that comes with this too, right? So Gabe, he was at the movie theater during our fast sleeper auction. So if you're in a fast sleeper auction, would recommend you don't do that. Maybe don't book a movie the same night we're doing a startup. Anyways, so Gabe didn't have a lot of assets. He spent up. He has like a couple assets, but again, it's a 12 by 12 best ball league. Like you can't just go studs and duds and have a chance. So he needed to split some things and really get some youth. Gabe's made a couple moves where now he's amassed, probably 5, maybe 6, 25 firsts, right? He's really going the youth game and, getting off points and the perceived values now to move into some future assets. Yeah, he's doing that. Now, T. Sanford, my man Terrell, he every time I looked at the board today, any time that someone had a good price, it was T, right? He was just scooping up value throughout the whole draft. So he has a really good team. Like it's not an overwhelming favorite, but it's aligned very well, and he's made some good bets. So I don't really project that first to be early or even mid. I do project that to be a playoff first. But if you've already aligned your team and you have so many 25 first already, that kind of negates that a bit and just give me another stake in the claim. But yeah, I think I want Gibbs Tank in the second, but I know exactly what Gabe is doing with Brooks Odunze in the first, and his team is not going to have Brooks Odunze in that first at the end of the day. He's going to make another move to do something else. So can you see that from maybe like a flippability standpoint, or just does it come to the same thing? Like it's just Gibbs and Tank. Like I've seen it. I can then flip that for that as well.
I think context-wise, it makes sense. If you're already, hey, I have 4 25 first, I want to get another one. I want 2 young players I like, and maybe he just flat out likes Odunze more than Dell. And I can completely understand that if you're like, he's going to be a better pro. Okay. And then you're kind of looking at the difference between Brooks and the first and Gibbs. Mm-hmm. And like I'm a Gibbs guy, so it's hard for me to see it, but in that build, I've done that before to where I'm flat out giving away better value, better weekly starters. But what it's going to do in the future next 2 years, it's going to give me such a better rebuilding piece because like you brought up that max points for before, these guys are going to ruin it if they're on my teams. If I can't move them by week 10, then all of a sudden I don't get that 101 or the 102. I get the 104 and 105. And sometimes in drafts, that is the biggest difference in the world because looking at that 25 draft, there's guys that we like, but we don't have that unicorn quarterback Caleb Williams. But maybe one ends up popping up in this collegiate season. Then all of a sudden, that 101 is worth so much more than the 102 because that's the quarterback that we want. And to where if you end up getting the 103, but hey, you still have Gibbs on your team, you could end up losing the value game just like that because that 101 ends up being the same value as Gibbs when rookie drafts end up happening soon. Or in a year from now, I should say.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So if I'm in a league, just give me as many shots at that first as I can. And yeah, like let me get those points off. So I think this is a really good deal for both sides, really. But I'm a Gibbs guy too, right? And again, in this format, those hammers, those difference makers, those spike weeks matter. So I think Gibbs in this league is kind of a cheat code. So I'll take Gibbs out of principle, but I get it for Gabe for sure. Okay, let's find one more and get out of here. Oh well. I mean, we could go through my deal that I made in this deal where I got off Aaron Rodgers, Tyler Conklin, and Tyler Lockett. Sent that over to old T. Sanford, who just got that deal done, and I got into Rasheed Rice, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Drew Lock. I'll give you 10 seconds then, and just tell me what you think.
I read this one earlier today. I'm like, yeah. I just need to ask you: are you a Rice guy? Is that why you did it, or are you more of a McLaughlin can kind of do his thing kind of guy? Because I pray it's not Drew Lock.
Right. It's not Drew Lock. It's not the Drew Lock at all. No. So I am a Jaleel biased person. I just think that Jaleel is going to be the efficient touch guy in that offense. And again, in this kind of a format, best ball, I just needed requisite bodies. I think Jaleel falls in that category for me. I came out of this startup with just a bunch of tight ends. I just took way too many. Like I completely changed the tight end market. As soon as this was the league ended or the auction ended, I flipped Kelsey for a 25 first to the Mahomes owner, just out of principle, right? So I was in tight end liquidation mode, and this one came into my inbox where Aaron Rodgers and Tyler Conklin could go. And I think Aaron Rodgers was my quarterback 3 or 4. I have Geno and I have Josh Allen. So, I mean, Josh Allen's a quarterback and a half, right? So Aaron Rodgers isn't really breaking the end of the day. And then for Tyler Lockett, I had just a lot of wide receiver bodies. So for me, Rashee Rice, again, I also have Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy on my team. So I figured, give me all 3. Like, give me the party pack.
You can't be wrong.
Give me the party pack, right? And I'll just take my shot at any of those wide receivers. And I also know the Mahomes owner is going to probably want a wide receiver on the Kansas City Chiefs at some point. So I already have a trade partner lined up if things go wrong. But Rice just feels like the buy low, where as soon as whatever is going to come is over, it's just going to go back to what he is on the field, which is a wide receiver who did things very early in an Andy Reid offense, where it's hard to do things early as a wide receiver in an Andy Reid offense. So I do like Rice for what he is, but it wasn't really a one player did this for me over another. It was a, let me move off some of the value that I gained in the auction, and let me move it into things that actually help my team, which is, let me move into Drew Lock, where if something happens in New York and he's the starter, I can either flip him or I can rely on maybe 1 or 2 starting weeks somewhere along the season where I just need to find a couple with Josh Allen, right? And then, just move out of tight end, move out of age, de-risk myself a bit, get into a more youthful asset in someone like a Rice. But from T's side, we saw he has a contending team. This makes a whole lot of sense, getting into those 3 producing assets and getting off some of the unknowns like a Rice, a Jaleel, and a Lock.
Yeah, I knew there was context behind it, because I'm like, this is a trade to where you'll see it, you're going to be like, what? Like, I see it, but why are we doing it? But no, now it makes complete sense.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, that's the thing. Context is everything in these things, man.
Oh, it's huge, man.
All right. Yeah. One more. We're going to end on one more knockout. This is the Knockout Kings episode, Mitch. So
okay, I like it. That's fair. We'll do it.
One more from Gabe. So Gabe, again, moving into rebuild mode. Got another 25 first, also got a 25 second, Tez Walker, Cade Stover, and just Marvin Harrison Jr. They move off of Jamar Chase and Travis Etienne. So for me, the way I broke this one down, Marvin Harrison and a second for Chase. Sure. Right. Chase, I think, is the wide receiver. That's the better thing. Like, he's the better producing asset at the end of the day. Marvin Harrison is propped up in dynasty value right now. You give me a second, that's enough for me to let go of Chase to move into the Marv. And then it's a first and just absolute dart throws for Travis Etienne. On a team that I'm trying to rebuild, you can take Etienne, give me the first, we'll move on. Do you see that any different?
So on a rebuild, I completely agree going with Marvin Harrison side. But if I think I'm even a middling to close to contending team, I'm taking Jamar Chase, because his upside is just everything we want Marvin Harrison to do. And I'm not a Travis Etienne guy at all. But, I mean, he's enough of a piece to where hopefully I can flip him to someone else and get something a little bit better. But, so that's one of those, we see those a lot in Dynasty, to where it's, hey, I'm rebuilding, this as a contender. You're like, well, okay, that deal makes a lot of sense. And so that one makes a lot of sense for me.
I know you said you don't like Pacheco because he runs weird. Etienne's the same way for me. I just can't like him because I don't like how he runs. I
get it, man.
He's going to break himself. But Mitch, you know what I do like is the way that you run in these Dynasty streets. And thank you so much for coming on the show. I had a lot of fun. Hope this was good for you. Hope the people listening took something from this. Mitch, where can the people find you and what do you got going on?
Yeah, dude, I appreciate you letting me on. Like, everything Ray has done forever, I'm always been the biggest fan of him. We started in kind of the same Dynasty league together when we both started a podcast the same side. So appreciate having me on. But you can get me at Dynasty MC on Twitter. I really just troll on it. I don't really post a lot on Twitter anymore because I think it's kind of hard to get anything out with the new algorithm. But Dynasty Theory on YouTube, just search it. Will pop up in a second. We're on there weekly. Right now we're recording Sunday mornings, but hop on, subscribe if you wouldn't mind. I would really appreciate it. But dude, just post some comments in the show. Let us know if we were so far off on the trades, if we're close on the trades. I love hearing that sort of feedback.
Absolutely. And that's what makes Dynasty fun. We can look at things differently. We can, if everyone saw things the same, this wouldn't be fun at all. So I appreciate that. And hey, if you want your trades on this show, if you think we're wrong, prove us wrong, get in here, show us the trades that you're doing, tell us why. Patreon.com/AllGas. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit that little bell, Keep up with the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Mitch, once again, this is awesome, man. We'll have to do it again. But we out of this thing. Peace.